is taking accountability and then learning from that, learning from whatever it's done in order to affect how it moves forward, instead of making the same mistake over and over again and hoping that it will change. You know, that's the definition of insanity. So yeah, my hope is that people are accountable, and therefore there's room for, you know, real growth. There's room for new artists to be able to come in and take up space. There's more room for funding to be given to people who wouldn't necessarily get that money, you know? That it kind of opens up to allow for more variety in the work.
I hope that in the next few years, the industry becomes more caring. I think it's very easy in our industry, especially when we're passionate about something, to fall in the cycle of working overtime, putting all hours into a show to make the best possible show because you feel so strongly that this is the best show. And I think we all have a duty of care to each other to check in and make sure that people are taking care of themselves. I think there needs to be more paid opportunities at entry-level positions, whether that's traineeships, internships, but opportunities that are paid fairly, where, yes, it's a risk, but where we can take a risk on new emerging theatre makers and see their careers progress and be extremely fruitful.
I want theatres to go back to being a pillar of their communities. You know, there was a moment in the pandemic where theatres were running out of money and they were having to close down and communities didn't care. And I was like, this is meant to be the pillar of the community. You know, if a theatre is being torn down, I want to see people in chains chaining themselves to the building going, no, how can you take this from us? But the fact of the matter is that, you know, theatres were in community and didn't care about those communities. So that's what I want for the future of theatre, to reflect us, society as a whole.
I've always said there is so much power in the hands of the consumer and us on a grassroots level. And I've always felt that if we can somehow understand as just as a community of people and come together and supporting work in the way that we can and do, then institutions have to pay attention. Do you know what I mean? They will follow wherever the trend goes.
Community work is one of the most important things that we have in theatre today. Theatre, film and TV, all of it. Because you're finding the next generation, you know what I mean? You're picking from the ground up and helping other people. You're sharing knowledge. And I think that's how it can happen. If you want your audiences to be more diverse, go to the schools, because then they'll know about the work. They'll go tell their parents, they'll tell other people, they'll go tell their churches, their mosques, whatever. They will share the information, and that's how you're going to end up having, you know, real diversity. But that's about diversity and longevity. It's just why I'm saying, like, it can't be an overnight thing. You have to invest in people in order to get the payoff, you know, 10 years, 20 years down the line, because they'll then give to, you know, the younger generation underneath them, and they'll give to the next generation, you know, and that's how you just keep expanding out.
What we can do to help the next generation is be there, mentoring, dramaturgy, being a sounding board. This industry is so tricky. It can be a Wild West at times, but having somebody that you can reach at the end of a phone call or a tweet, or I don't know how people communicate nowadays, but somebody that is responsive to you, that can go, okay, yeah, you need an agent now because that contract's a bit tricky. Or actually, you don't need an agent at all because all they're doing is taking 10 or 12% and you're finding the work. Like somebody that's going to say, okay, I'm here when you need a shoulder to rest your head on. I think that's really important. Also, especially creatives that are behind the scenes, being vocal and visible to the younger generation. When I was growing up, I didn't know any people of colour that was behind the scenes doing lighting, sound design, production management. Those jobs were not obtainable because they didn't exist. So working, trying to do some types of schemes that allows those positions to be visible, because there are many, many young people that have such artistic prowess who don't know where to put those talents.
There needs to be diversity in every department across a production, because if there isn't, and a person of colour comes to see your show or comes to your theatre, it's very easily noticeable. You know that costume designer wasn't of that lived experience or didn't share that lived experience.
So in order to bring audiences of colour to the theatre, I think you need to go to them. You can't expect them to come to you. Theatre is a relatively white space, a relatively, middle to upper class space as well. So if you want to branch outside of that, you need to just go and find the people that would be invested. But that's about, going into communities and not smashing into them. It's about making relationships with communities, with places where you're going to find a lot of people of colour, areas even, investing into them so they have trust for this space and they feel like the theatre space can belong to them. It's not really about diversifying your audience, it's about empowerment.